We're going to be talking about bluegrass and flat picking, cross picking tonight, and we're very excited to have with us the legendary Molly Tuttle. Molly, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh man,
Great to be
it
here.
is great to have you here with us. I have been an admirer of your playing
Thanks.
for a while, and was just thrilled that it worked out for you to be in
too.
town. I know
I
you're so
know.
busy, and I'm so glad that it worked out for you to
thanks
be
for
on the show.
asking me.
Can you get us started off with a song? What are you going to play for us?
I'll do a song that I wrote, and this is on my EP that came out last year, and this one's called Good Enough. Couldn't sleep last night. Too many demons floating round my head. But with the morning light, your warmth pushed away my dread. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. I've gotta let this go. This doubt inside me, with every road I take, there's things I'll never know, but I'll go my own way. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. Day by day, with a little laughter, a smile to get me through. Maybe I'm not okay, not today, but I'm here with you. And there comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. Comes a time to say that's good enough. I'm finally learning how to let some doors stay shut. It gets so hard, but I'm not giving up. Comes a time to say that's good enough. Comes a time to say that's good enough. Thank you.
Wonderful. Tell us how you got started. Where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Palo Alto, California, in the Bay Area, and then I moved out to Boston to go to school. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Did you come from a musical family?
I did, yeah. My dad, he grew up playing. Actually, my grandfather was the first one in the family to play. He played banjo, so my dad grew up with bluegrass and then kind of passed that on to me and my brothers. My two younger brothers both play.
Wow.
So, yeah, I grew up playing with them, and then moved out to Boston, moved to Nashville about 3 years ago.
Have you always played guitar, or do you do mandolin and other things as well?
I dabble with mandolin a little bit, and I guess my second instrument would be banjo. I started on guitar, and that's always been kind of my main focus, but a couple years after picking up guitar, I started learning banjo, and I don't really play it very much anymore, but it's still kind of, when I do, it's really fun. I want to get back into it.
I bet. Now, San Francisco area, not necessarily a bluegrass hotbed, I would think. Is there a bluegrass scene there that I don't know about?
There's an awesome scene. It's definitely not what people think about when they think of that area, but I grew up getting to hear like Lori Lewis, Kathy Kallick, David Grisman, Peter Rowan, so many more just awesome bluegrass musicians who either grew up there or kind of migrated to that area.
Wow.
I think Vern Williams is someone who's was one of the first or second generation of bluegrass people. He moved out from Arkansas to California, and he kind of got this whole scene of traditional bluegrass started out there, and got a lot of people into it. So there's a lot of bands who are influenced by him. But yeah, it's a great scene, and everyone, I kind of grew up in it. Everyone was really supportive of me.
Good. And so, did you have formal training along the way before you can't just jump into Berklee College of Music?
Well, my dad was always my guitar teacher, and I did have a voice teacher throughout high school who helped me learn technique, like breathing and support for singing. But my dad mostly taught me by ear, and he would sit down with me and help me improvise. That's kind of how I learned to improvise and pick up melodies by ear. And then once I got to Berklee, it was like formal kind of music theory stuff and ear training.
Yeah.
So.
What did you eventually get your degree in? Guitar performance?
Yeah, guitar
Berklee?
performance.
Well, so did you have to do all the jazz stuff?
Yeah, a lot of my teachers were jazz musicians, which at first I was like, dang it, I wish there was a bluegrass guitar teacher here. But by the end of my time there, I was really grateful to get that different perspective. And some of my teachers played blues mostly. I had one teacher who was a great classical player. So,
who are some players, some flat picking, some bluegrass guys that have influenced you along the way?
Yeah, there's a lot. Clarence White is who I grew up hearing a lot around the house, and he's still one of my favorites. He blows me away whenever I listen to his stuff. Tony Rice, learned a lot of his solos growing up. David Greer is another one of my favorites. And
we've had Dave on the
awesome.
David on the show. Yeah.
When I first moved to Nashville, he was always kind of telling me about cool guitar things happening around town, which is really sweet.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and I really got into Gillian Welch a lot when I was a teenager, and then kind of through that started hearing the guitar parts that Dave Rawlings was playing, and he became one of my all-time favorite players. So
yeah, wonderful. So you moved here to Nashville 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But you're out quite a bit. You have your own group, and then you're out with other people. What all things are you doing these days?
So I've mostly been playing with my own group. This last week I was in Kansas City at the Folk Alliance, and I was mostly playing solo. I had my friend Christian Settlemyer sit in on a couple of my showcases, but mostly solo. But usually I'm with a 4-piece band with my bandmates.
I see Mark Delaware is saying, what does Molly do to warm up?
It really varies a lot depending on how much time I have. I don't have any specific warm-up routines that I do, but I do have little exercises that I do at home, but I find if I do those before I play, sometimes my hand gets too tired. So I'll just play.
Can you show us a couple of those?
Yeah, sure.
The picking exercise, I guess.
Picking exercises, yeah. Some of those that I might do to warm up, I usually just do them for practice. I guess for warm-ups, I usually just play through some songs that I'm going to play later to kind of get my head in that zone. But for a pick warm-up, I might just take 2 strings and go alternate on the outside of the string. So start on the lower of the 2 strings. So I would start on the 2nd string with a down pick, and then go up pick on the 1st string, and then try to work on that as fast as I can. For a while, and then take it on the inside. So start on a down pick on the lower, or I guess the higher string, but it's lower, closer to the ground. So start on the 1st string with a down, and then 2nd string with an up. So you're inside the 2 strings.
Yeah. Just trickier than you would think to get that clean.
Yeah, that one is trickier. So work on speed with both of those, and I find I do a lot of teaching, or I have done a lot of teaching, and with students, the inside one is always harder. So just trying to get those both more even.
Now, what kind of pick are you using today? What is that?
I'm using a Dunlop. This is like a 207 jazz model, and this is the pick that I just grew up using, and I know a couple other people who use these. I also use blue chips.
Pretty rounded edges, not hardly a.
This one is worn out. I should really get a new one. I have other ones around, but this one's pretty worn out, so it's a lot more rounded than they are when they're new.
I've seen some bluegrass guys use the Wagon picks.
Yeah, I like those.
Those are really cool picks. Kind of hard to find. I think Groons has them, but not many stores have those.
Yeah, I've probably tried every kind of pick that people use. So I've used those Wiegans. I've used blue chips, which I really like.
And so that's a pretty thick pick.
Yeah, this is.
So that would be at least a millimeter, if not a little bit more.
The exact.
That there's just no give in that at all. Kevin, I don't know if you've got a shot of that. Great. Now, what kind of guitar are you playing here today?
Oh, here I'm playing a Huss and Dalton. So this is a Huss and Dalton guitar company, and they're in Virginia. And I've had this guitar for about a year. It's the first OM that I've ever had. I always played dreadnoughts, but I kind of like the OM for when I'm playing solo. It's a more mellow, kind of round sound, which I like. So yeah, I got this guitar from them, and
you've worked a lot with Huss and Dalton.
I have 2 Huss and Daltons right now. I have one dreadnought and then this one.
Beautiful. Well, they get such a great sound especially for that flat picking technique. Nice. Wonderful. Lily from Australia, all the way from Australia, is asking about technique exercises. So you have those two. What are some other things that you do?
Do like a cross-picking warm-up, so that's cross-picking.
Tell us what cross-picking, like the definition, for those who may not be as familiar with flat-picking techniques.
So cross-picking is where you take 3 strings. So I might take the 4th string, the 3rd string, and the 2nd string just to demonstrate, but you can do it on any set of strings. And usually, so the basic cross-picking pattern is starting on the lowest string, so I would start on the 4th string with the down, and then if you're doing alternating, I can show 2 different ways to do it, but the first one is alternating pick direction. So you'd go down on the 4th string, up on the 3rd, down on the 2nd, and then you go back down to the 4th. So I'm alternating all the strings, so the first 3 notes you do is down, up, down, and then when you go back to the 4th string, you're on an up, so up, down, up. So it's down, up, down, up, down, up. And so that's a kind of a pattern of 3, and if you're playing in 4, the way you can round it out to fit in one measure is do it 2 times through, so, and then put 2 notes at the end. So I would go 4th string, 2nd string at the end to round it out. So
and then talk us through the down and up part of it.
Yeah, so it would be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up.
Which gives you an 8-note pattern.
And then you're back to the beginning, So.
Now, put that into a musical context for us.
So if I was going to put that into a song, let's see. So one that I often show people is Wildwood Flower, because that's kind of a tune that a lot of people learned. It was one of the first tunes I ever learned to play on guitar. So the ways you might play it without cross-picking would be... So you're putting strums in, but if you want to add in that cross-picking pattern, you would go...
Da, da, da,
so
da.
Kind of, it displaces the melody and makes it more, you're anticipating the melody instead of... Which is cool. Gives it a nice sound.
And with the arpeggiation that's going on between the cross-picking and different chords, it kind of fills it out.
The chords. It's nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot that has to do with patterns that have to do with adjacent strings. So like you're doing some sort of a pattern, but it's basically a 2-string sort of a pattern. Is that something that's common in
bluegrass? Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of times you're playing bluegrass, people use a lot of open strings and a lot of like cross-picking type things, so you are switching strings a lot, but you also want to be playing fast, so that can be one of the biggest roadblocks to really building up speed is being able to switch strings quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
What are, as far as building up speed, what are some things that you have found that have helped you?
Well, those 2 exercises I showed, I think, helped me a lot. And then really just working on songs and not being afraid to push the speed with a metronome every day. I think sometimes I find with students, they want to get everything perfect, so they'll keep it at a slow speed where they can play it perfectly. And that's really good for getting accuracy and just getting comfortable with a song. But I think to work on speed, sometimes you have to push it to where you can't play it perfectly clean, but eventually you'll build up higher and higher speed. Your brain, I think, catches up eventually. So I worked a lot with a metronome with songs that I was working on that I wanted to get to a fast speed.
Peter Smith is saying, looks like you are locking your wrist on the bridge or kind of bracing down here. Is that common to do, to kind of brace down there?
Yeah, it's common to brace somewhere or anchor somewhere. I am bracing kind of on the bridge or the low strings with this part of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like anchoring it down really hard, but just kind of resting when I play leads. When I play rhythm, I'm totally free floating.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that's common that you see people do in bluegrass is kind of rest the pinky here, or different ways to anchor your hand a little bit. Some people totally free float too. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to do it.
Because your right hand looks so effortless as it's playing through its the very complicated things. Do most bluegrass players use thicker picks? I've seen most of the ones I've seen tend to use a thicker pick.
Yeah, I think it is more common to use a thicker pick. I know a couple people who use thinner picks and still get the awesome bluegrass tone, but yeah, I think most people I come across play with thicker picks.
And it seems to be that from the bluegrass players that I've seen, they are generally larger picks, so not these little, like maybe these little jazzy, not these sharp point jazz 3 Dunlops, but they're more these rounded sort of a pick.
Yeah, this one I'm using is like smaller than most people I know use. A lot of people I know use the triangle ones that are quite a bit bigger.
Yeah, and then I've got one of these little wagon ones, which is kind of like yours, not quite as thick as yours.
Yeah.
So what kind of strings are you using these days?
I use Diodarios, and I use the medium gauge. Normally just like the phosphor bronze, but I like to get the coated ones because my fingers, something about them just kills strings right away. So I like to use those. I just tried the nickel bronze ones from Diodario, and those are cool too. I think for this guitar I like to use those. For my dreadnought I usually use the phosphor bronze ones, but yeah, I'm used to playing with mediums.
How do you travel with your acoustic guitar? We get so many questions about that.
Yeah.
Do you check it? Do you put it overhead? Things like that. Do you just hope for the best?
Well, I use a Huss Cox case, which isn't like I don't think it's the most protective you can find on the market. But I generally fly Southwest and
they're good about that.
Yeah, they're good about it. And lately I've been just buying the kind of A group boarding, and usually haven't really, if I can get into the A group, they'll pretty much usually let it on unless it's a small plane, but then they'll gate check it usually. It's worked out for me. I've never had a guitar break on an airplane.
Jimmy Hood is saying, Molly, tell us a little bit about some of the Clawhammer guitar playing. I saw a couple of videos with you doing a little bit more of that style. Kind of explain what that style is.
So that's like, it's really the same as the banjo. It's kind of taken from the banjo style as far as I know, and I always use an open tuning. I've never really tried it in standard tuning because you want to have the drone string like the banjo does. On the banjo has a high string on the top, but with Clawhammer guitar it's cool because you have the low string on the bottom for your drone. So the actual technique that you're doing is down with your kind of index. I might strum or pluck the string with my index and
kind of the nail part of it.
Yeah, so it's more
almost
like a
back
brush.
of it. Yeah,
or kind of you're going like that if you're hitting individual strings or brushing across all the strings, and then your fingers go down, your thumb hooks onto the low string. It could be either the 5th string or the 6th string, or even one of, if you want to do drop thumb, but that's a little more of an advanced technique. And then so you down with the fingers, hook the thumb, and when your hand comes back up, you're plucking the string. So it's kind of backwards.
Wow. What is one of the songs that you do that they can search for it that you have the Clawhammer stuff?
Yeah, I have probably 3 or 4 online. There's the first one I ever did was Little Sadie. There's a video of me when I was like 15. I don't know why I'm
How old are you now?
I'm 25.
25.
Yeah, that was my very first one I ever learned on Clawhammer guitar. I haven't watched that video in years. I don't know how it sounds. But then I guess my latest one, I had a song on my EP called Save This Heart. And there's a couple videos of me doing that. And then the other one I like to do is Old Man at the Mill, which is a song I got from the Dillards, and I'm sure there's videos of me doing that around online.
2017 was a great year for you.
Yeah,
you were on the cover of Flatpicking Guitar Magazine, and then you were on the cover of Acoustic Guitar Magazine as well in their April issue.
Yeah.
And you taught, I think, Wildwood Flower. I think your arrangement of Wildwood Flower is in the acoustic guitar.
And there's a video of me on YouTube doing that on my channel, and then I think on their website you can find a video of me going more in depth to that.
Yeah. What's your YouTube channel's name?
Just Molly Tuttle.
Molly Tuttle. Okay. Great. And then just in, was it in October or November that the IBMA?
Oh yeah.
You were.
That was in.
When's their
now it's
conference?
running together in my head. I think it was October.
Yeah, October. Yeah. And you were voted for the first time the Guitarist of the Year.
Yeah, that was
so exciting. Yes. One thing I just love about the bluegrass world, and I wish other guitar genre worlds had this same mindset, there's just a whole attitude within bluegrass at the IBMA of mentoring younger players.
Yeah.
So you have older players and younger players playing together, playing in jams and things like that. That's a uniquely wonderful bluegrass thing. You don't see that in, pop or other styles. Even in jazz, there's less of that of just the welcoming new younger members to it. That I always thought bluegrass was so wonderful with that.
Yeah, it's a really great. I think that's just part of the culture, and because everyone's getting together and jamming and knows the same song, so it really creates a community where you can lift people up and get them on stage with you, because they'll probably know some of the songs that you know. And it was awesome for me growing up in that I had a lot of my heroes kind of just spend time with me, kind of mentoring me, and now I can do that with young musicians who I see at festivals, so it's really fun.
What are some of the big bluegrass festivals?
The big one that I always grew up going to was the Father's Day Bluegrass Festival in California, and that's one of the bigger traditional ones. And then some other big ones are like the Gray Fox Bluegrass Festival, Rocky Grass, Telluride. Those are all big ones.
Telluride's in the summer, I think, if I remember.
Yeah, most of them are all in the summer. Wintergrass, it's another really fun one, which is in the winter.
If someone wanted to start learning flat picking and bluegrass, what are some good resources? I know Flatpicking Guitar Magazine is a great resource for that. What are some other resources or events where folks can go and learn?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guitar camps throughout the summer that you can find. Probably Flatpicking Guitar Magazine has them listed. I know Acoustic Guitar Magazine just did an issue on bluegrass camp or guitar camps in general, and Brian Sutton and I were in that talking about bluegrass camps. So camps are always great, but if you want to do online stuff, there's the Artist Works, which Brian Sutton teaches on, which is awesome. I've definitely watched a bunch of those videos myself, and then Peghead Nation is another similar format that has some really good guitar teachers too. So
Lee is asking, do you do a lot of rest strokes with your pick when you're playing single lines?
So I do rest strokes. So for anyone who isn't familiar with rest strokes, what that is when you pluck a string with your pick, instead of coming up away from the string like this, I don't know, it's hard to see that, but you go down towards the ground and your pick actually rests on the next string down. That's always why I thought it was called rest stroke. I don't actually know really why it's called that. But what that sounds like if you're playing like a G run, instead of sounding like this, it sounds like this. So it's
more powerful.
More powerful. Yeah, you get kind of a bigger tone and louder. So when you're playing in a bluegrass band, you can really cut through the other instruments a lot better. And I play with rest strokes when I'm doing lines that are quarter notes and at a little slower or moderate tempo. I don't play with rest strokes
harder to
when
play
I'm
it faster,
doing eighth notes. Yeah, if I'm playing like down, up, down, up, down, I'm not really doing rest strokes. But if I have a lot of down picks in a row, I'll try to do rest strokes.
If folks were trying to just practice these various picking patterns, what would you recommend? Just scales, kind of open scales, or little licks within those scales?
I always liked learning by licks or learning tunes, and then for better or for worse, it really helped when I learned scales later on. But I think for these technique things, you can learn like some bass runs. That'll really help you incorporate it into your playing when you're actually playing those licks in jams and stuff.
I know some of the fiddle tunes, some of the reels and things like that. That's really technical for your picking. So those are great to learn. St. Anne's reel and all these different things. Can you play something else?
Sure.
What are you going to play for us?
Well, let me think about that. I'll play another song I wrote. This is called You Didn't Call My Name, and it was exciting. Last week I was at the Folk Alliance conference, and this won the Song of the Year there. So
really?
Yeah,
how exciting.
Yeah.
town with you and see the city all lit up new. Watching store to store, we wouldn't want for more. No more feeling tired and blue. But you didn't call my name. You didn't call my name. You just watched me walk away. Frosted window of a train, go by the same stops every day. The dancing in your eyes, you took me by surprise. I long to see those eyes again. You didn't call my name. You didn't call my name. You just watched me walk away. We always would feel the same way. Can that love bring you home someday? I cling 'cause I've got nothing else, but it seems just fooling myself with the passing of the times. Some memories linger in my mind, but none I hold so dear as you whispering in my ear. Oh, it makes me wanna cry. 'Cause you didn't call my name. You didn't call my name. You just watched me walk away.
Thank you.
How do you attack your strings with the pick? Specifically talking about pick angle.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll try and get a super tight shot of this.
So my pick angle, I guess it's a little bit angled up like this, and a little bit.
And you don't have very much your pick showing.
Yeah, I really don't. So.
Yeah,
I
just
can see that.
a little bit. Yeah.
A little bit. Actually, it's kind of funny because people always talk about nails on this hand getting too long, but actually, since I hold the pick like this, if my nail on this hand gets too long, it's more problematic for me because it like catches.
You'll
on
catch
the
it,
string,
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the angle. So I'm like tilting it a little bit down like this and a little bit like that, but try to keep it pretty perpendicular to the string.
Yeah. Fascinating. And that makes a big difference in the tone that you get. So I would encourage you guys to experiment with that. How you attack the string, whether straight on or whether angling just slightly, can give you a real pleasant sound if you angle it just a little bit. M Gift is asking about improvisation. In bluegrass circles, how does improvisation work? Is it, I know from a jazz perspective, it's kind of like a blank slate, and you can create whatever you want to over these tonalities, these chord frames. But I've often heard with flat picking and bluegrass, it's a little bit more like you're chaining together licks or ideas that are kind of getting you to different parts of the neck, and then you're working your way up and working your way down and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of connecting different places on the neck when you're wanting to play up the neck. My favorite players kind of, I think they all keep the melody in their heads a lot with bluegrass, and I try to do that too, kind of vary the melody, and if I move away from the melody, still have it in my head so I can come back. I don't like to just play whatever throughout the whole tune or song that I'm playing. I try to always kind of like keep some aspect of the melody there, where whether it's like a rhythmic idea or just a motif from the melody and play off of that. But I really started improvising just from going to bluegrass jams, and the first few I went to I'll remember forever because I just fell totally flat on my face and could barely even play like 2 notes whenever I took a solo. It was really scary at first, but you start to
get better at it.
Yeah, you start to kind of hear different runs that people play and pick up on things from other people. My dad was huge for that. We would sit around and play tunes, and he was really patient with me. At first, I just couldn't improvise at all, and he would be like, well, listen to my solo and try to just steal one little lick that I play and play that in your solo too. And that was a good way for me to be able to pick up on something really fast and try to incorporate it in my own way. And then from there, you can create your own licks and make your own sound.
There's some different resources for that as well over at just coming to mind here, flatpick.com. I know there's a book, Improvisation, that Dan Miller and Tim May did in kind of more of a bluegrass flat picking end of thing, improvisational runs and things like that. So you might check out Flatpicking. I think it's flatpick.com, and they have some resources over there. There's some DVDs and books and things like that. But the books aren't real flashy, but it's full of good information. And a lot of these runs, a lot of these scale patterns and ideas, picking ideas, and songs are in there. So I always love that publication. They would have a bunch of songs and even different solos all tabbed out and stuff. It was great. For those with daughters, who are the guitar heroes? Who are the guitar heroes that you looked up to as a woman? And you are the first woman that has ever won the Guitarist of the Year. So who is out there that you hope inspires the next generation of women to fall in love with the guitar? Yeah,
women guitar players. I remember getting to meet Nina Gerber, who was a great guitar player who I got to see a lot at this festival, Strawberry Music Festival, growing up. And she gave me a lesson when I was a teenager, and that was cool. And it was just awesome to see her playing. And I never really thought about the fact that all my guitar players that I grew up hearing a lot in the bluegrass world were men. But as I got older, I started thinking about it more. And so it was great to get to see Nina. And Rebecca Frazier was someone who came through California, and she made time to sit down with me and jam with me, and that was really cool. And she was the first woman on Flatpicking Guitar magazine to ever be featured on the cover. So it was really sweet of her to spend that time kind of sitting down with me. And my friend Courtney Hartman, we're around the same age, but we'll see each other's at festivals, and it's just fun to kind of connect. And it's kind of rare to connect with another woman who plays lead on guitar like that. So those were some of my heroes growing up. And I think just the more women who are out there doing it, each generation I'm seeing more girls who are now playing leads on guitar and improvising and jamming. And so I think it'll just keep happening more and more.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I love it. Larry Sixstring is saying, do you play open string scales in your solos? And the short answer is yes. Yes. Can you show us a couple of open string runs and scales? So the open string scale in G would just be, and she's capoed at the second fret.
A technically.
Okay.
And then if you're playing a lick with that, you're gonna want to kind of keep those chord tones on the downbeat to make it sound like sound a little more musical than just playing up and down a scale. So I might go. of tunes you'll find are up and down the scale. Yeah.
Now, I noticed, just as you were playing there, that all of that you seem to be favoring fingers 1, 2, and 3, and you hardly ever played your pinky with that. I wonder if that's kind of a bluegrass, or just kind of the flat picking runs just tend to be more fingers 1, 2, and 3, the stronger fingers, rather than adding pinky in with different things.
I definitely use my pinky, I think, especially in that G position. I am kind of staying away from the pinky there just because it's easier for me to shift back and fret.
Back and fret,
start using my pinky for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I do use it, but it just kind of depends on what's easiest, and I'm not using it as much as some other people you'll see. But if you look at, like, David Greer uses his all the time, and his pinky's just super strong. Yeah.
Do you ever play in alternate tunings?
I do, yeah. Mainly when I do. I've been learning tunes from, I've gone over to Sweden a couple times and learned some Swedish music. So I use Dadgad for that usually. And I was in Shetland and learned a couple Shetland tunes, and a lot of players I find in, like, the UK and that area and in Shetland and Sweden use alternate tunings a lot more than we do here. So when I learn those tunes, they just kind of lay out on other tunings.
A lot of that Celtic guitar is very similar to bluegrass in the techniques and stuff. How do you come up with new licks and lines as far as improvisation?
I think just playing a song a bunch of times in a row, I just naturally kind of get bored with whatever I'm playing before and then just play something new. But yeah, I mean, that comes naturally to me now, but at first I really sat down and worked them out. I would kind of have maybe an idea in my head and sit down and try to learn how to play it on guitar, or learn a melody, and then sometimes from melodies that can spark an idea for another tune.
Are there some great improvisers that you look at in the bluegrass world and you go, wow?
Yeah, I mean, Brian Sutton, incredible. He's just can play over any kind of tune and sound amazing. David Greer, his ideas are so incredible, and those two are some of my big heroes right now. Chris Eldridge is so amazing too, and he lives in Nashville, and I think he has some of the most incredible ideas.
John, you're asking about float picking, of which is not something I think that maybe perhaps flat picking you might be.
Or is it like?
Ooh, that was cool. What was that?
I don't know if it's called float picking, but that was the first thing that came into my mind. It's like kind of it's where you're not playing the same string twice in a row, so it all rings out. Yeah. I used to know a cooler lick with it, but something like that. But
very cool.
Yeah, it's just finding scale lines.
I know there's some arpeggio patterns that stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what they mean.
Basically, you're just trying to create something and use as many open strings and adjacent strings as you can. You know, if you can play, if you have an A, well, why play it there when I can play it open and still keep it ringing as I'm ringing these other notes out? And so you get this overlapping of pitches, which is really cool in some runs. Dennis Skaggs is saying, Molly, do you read music? You can't. I don't think you can get through the end of Berkeley without knowing how to read music. Or do you play by ear mostly?
Yeah, or? I think I somehow got through Berkeley like reading as little music as possible, and I still can't read it very well. I know like theoretically how to, but it's just like I can't look at something and play it.
Yeah, so much of bluegrass is by rote and by ear and by just learning a library of songs just by being in so many jam sessions. Molly, what are you going to close us out with?
I'll do Gentle on My Mind.
Gentle on My Mind, all right.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thanks for everyone watching. This has been so much fun.
I'm so glad you were able to do it.
Likewise.
It's knowing that your door is always open and your path is free to walk that makes me tend to leave my sleeping bag rolled up and stashed behind your couch. And it's knowing I'm not shackled by forgotten words and bonds and the ink stains that dried upon some line that keeps you in the back roads by the rivers of my memory, keeps you ever gentle on my mind. It's not clinging to the rocks and ivy planted on their columns now that binds me. Or something that somebody said because they thought we'd fit together walking. It's just knowing that the world will not be cursing or forgiving when I walk along some railroad track and find that you're waving on the back roads by the rivers of my memory, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. Oh, the wheat fields and the clotheslines and the junkyards and the highways come between us. Some other woman's crying to her mother 'cause she turned and I was gone. I still might run in silence, tears of joy might stain my face, and the summer sun might burn me till I'm blind. But not to where I cannot see you waving on the back roads by the rivers flowing gentle on my mind. Well, I tip my cup of soup back from the gurgling, crackling cauldron in some train yard. My beard roughened in a coal pile and a dirty hat pulled low across my face. Through cup towns round a tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find back roads by the rivers of my memory, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Oh, thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's fun.
Keep up the great work in your own learning, and we will see you all next time.